evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and tonight, for this evening, we're interviewing Lindsay Ducharme. She's a candidate for Ward 4 School Committee. And the thing you need to recognize, her name won't be on the ballot because nobody is on the ballot. It's a write-in campaign, and there are several candidates who are working on the write-in approach. So, Lindsay, why do you want to be on the school committee?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate your time. A couple different things. I think I probably would have considered running for school committee a little bit sooner, but I always threw my support behind John Mullady, and I'm really grateful and appreciative of the time that he served. And I appreciate the way he represented himself in our ward. And I'd like to continue that great work. I know that I have some thoughts and questions and concerns that I would like to bring to the school committee, but really I think that what I want to do is continue doing the great work that they've been doing, that the school committee has been doing. I read a really great quote recently about school committee and about running for school committee. It says, joining a board is like jumping on a train that's moving. They have been working together. They have a vision, they have goals. And as a candidate, you want to figure out how you can be part of that, what you can do to add to that, and how you can be of service. And that's exactly how I feel when I think about why I'm running. So it feels a little bit serendipitous that this opportunity came up at the time that it did and in the way that it did. I wish that I had a little bit more time to prepare, but I'm working really hard in the short amount of time given to get my name out there, to get people to meet people, to get people to understand who I am and how I operate a little bit more if they don't already know me. And so I'm trying to maximize on the time that I have left. Do you want me to give you a little bit of background on sort of what I've been doing and how I've been involved in the community?
Well, I think that would be important to understand that what's your approach to the school committee? Like, do you have kids in the school? Do you run? Yeah. Have you been through the Beverly school system?
Yeah.
What do you think of the quality of the education in Beverly?
Yeah.
Where's it going? These are the kinds of things that I'm in Ward 4, so I'm going to have to vote for one of you candidates. And this is what I'm looking forward to finding out. Yeah. Who should I vote for and why?
Yeah, sure. So I do have kids in the school system. I have 2 kids plus a nephew. So my daughter, Emma, is 7 and she's in 2nd grade at Hannah. And my son, Jackson, is 10 and he is in 5th grade at the middle school. I'm a huge supporter of public education. In fact, but I think that I think there's always work to be done. I think we're in a really great place, and specifically for Jackson. So Jackson is on an IEP. He's dyslexic. He gets a tremendous amount of support from the Beverly school system. And I think if we weren't in Beverly, I feel pretty confident that he wouldn't be doing as successfully as he is. I think it takes a lot of work, and I think it takes a lot of collaboration between home and family. But I think the Beverly school system is doing a great job. Do I think we have areas where we need improvement? Absolutely. And that takes, again, collaboration with families. And I think families need to have an opportunity to vocalize what's not going well so we can work in those areas. And then I have a nephew who's in 7th grade at the middle school as well.
Okay.
I did not grow up in the Beverly school system. I grew up in Manchester, Mass, just a couple towns over. My husband and I bought in 2005. And then 3 years ago, we moved just 2 doors down on the same street. So we're really happy with where we live. I think Beverly offers a tremendous amount. I think it's one of the huge attractions in the area. I think, we have access to the train, we have access to the beaches. I think in a lot of ways, I talk about Beverly as like a nice small community and a little bit of a bigger city. So I'm really happy with our experiences here.
Okay. And well, you bring up the Hannah School, and just showed up on Patch yesterday or the day before, the ratings of all the schools in the country. U.S. News and World Report does this annually. And they got out another article, I think it showed up today, that a number of the Beverly elementary schools showed up pretty well. And the list that showed up is North Beverly came out 94th out of 964 elementary schools in Massachusetts. So it's in the top 10%, which is kind of spectacular. Your favorite and mine, the Hannah School, which covers Ward 4, showed up at 294. So they're in the top third. And then they went down through the list, and the Ayers Royal side was the lowest on it, 392 out of, again, 964. So it's pretty close to the top third. So Beverly school system is doing very well. And like you say, it could be doing better. So how do you see it doing better? What could you change or advocate for to make it better?
Yeah, sure. So Cove is also, we actually have a large amount of students in Ward 4 over at Cove. So Ward 4 covers Cove and Hannah Elementary School.
Yeah.
So I think the reason why we're doing as well as we are is because we have great leadership. And I think I've personally experienced it just in this school year alone, a number of conversations with my kids' teachers, and I know they're working really hard. And so I think we have dedicated teachers who really care about the kids. And I think that's what really generates the success that we're seeing. So I think that in terms of what we could do better, I think we could, we've talked a lot in this community, and our community is not alone in terms of how we can create equitable opportunity for all students. And that's not just about race. That's about children who identify themselves differently. We don't just have boys and girls anymore. We have gender non-binary. We have a lot of opportunity to create, as Mrs. Montevecchi will say, the principal over at Hannah, windows and mirrors for our students, opportunities for them to see themselves through and reflected in their teachers and their community. And so I think that with the audit that Dr. Morgan did and the audit that he's working on with Dr. Churchak and her staff, I think we see some opportunities, certainly at the middle school and the high school, to do a little bit better. I think that starts at the elementary school level. I think kids do probably very often a lot better job than we do as adults with some of these topics. So I think the job of the school committee is really to just, create a destination for where we want our district to be, and to empower the superintendent and her staff to get us there, to choose the right path to get us to that destination, and to give voice to students and to teachers and staff as well. I think the conversation shouldn't just be between the superintendent and the school committee. I think we really need to be collaborative as a community and include the voices of our teachers and our educators and our staff.
Okay. You start to talk about the issues that students have. And one of the things that surprised me is I had a discussion with Dr. Morgan and a few other school committee members. And right now, the demographics of the school system shows like 74% European heritage and 26% of minorities. And you look at the demographics of the city as a whole, and it's something like 92, 93% European heritage, and the rest is different minorities. And I got into a little bit of a heated discussion with the superintendent over, I don't like to call them black and white because I don't think that's the right way to address the problem, but that's another issue. But we're looking at a system that I think what I'm hearing is that we're bringing in a lot of minorities into the special ed programs. And have you heard anything about that, or do you see that? Because you mentioned your son's got an IEP. And
yeah. I guess, can you explain your question a little bit more? Like, do you have concerns about populations of children on IEPs that are, like, could you explain your question a little bit more?
Well, when you start to look at the demographics and you look at the results of the survey, the equity survey that they did, Um, there are something like 20 some odd percent of the students who are in minorities. A lot of them have language difficulties. There are also a number of students who are coming from disadvantaged situations. So there's a large percentage in the system of kids that need extra help.
Sure.
So,
I think, yeah,
so
yeah,
the question, how do you get to it? How do you
I think
handle
kids
it?
end up on IEPs. I mean, IEPs, I think, are really designed to be, listen, we want kids in the most inclusive environment possible, right? And I think the idea is really to give them services in the most inclusive way possible. And we don't necessarily need children on IEPs in order to accomplish that. I think children end up on IEPs for a number of different reasons. And I think they might, we might have English language learners, we might have socioeconomic needs, we might have social emotional needs, we might have learning differences. I think kids end up on IEPs for lots of different reasons. And the idea is not to keep them on an IEP forever, right? Because we want them to be as inclusive as possible. So, my son's on an IEP. He has a language-based teacher at the middle school, and he spends the majority of his time in the general education classroom. And for his language-based needs, he gets some more special individualized attention. Do I think we need to dig in and understand a little bit more why and if we have a population of children with needs that aren't getting addressed, and are there consistencies there that we need to pay attention to? Absolutely. I think some of that has come out of the audit and will come out of the audit, and that's something that I think definitely needs to be part of our ongoing work.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Well, I guess the issue comes down to is you want to improve the school system. You have a personal interest in special ed, whatever they call it this year. It's when I went to school, it was the ungraded room. So that tell you how far down the path I've been.
I think we also want to make sure that kids that are on IEPs, like, we want that to be invisible to the rest of the community, right? Like, I hear a lot of stories about kids who come home and say, mom or dad or grandma or uncle, I'm not getting, the special education teacher that I'm supposed to be getting, and come to find out they actually are. I think special education teachers and the staff are doing a really great job of making that as invisible as possible, but still accomplishing the goals that we set for whatever the individualized need is for the student.
Well, that gets into the issue of equity. And when you start to look at the situation that kids come to school with a lot of talents and a lot of extra, well, I shouldn't say shortcomings, but they have some problems. And I think the real meaning of equity is try to get all kids to the point where they can get the maximum out of the school system. And I think there's too much emphasis, I think, on people of color, when in reality, I think there's a lot more issues involved that affect the broader class of students. And I'm looking, I guess, to your ideas of how do you get all the kids to the maximum capability, which is really what we're trying to do. And it sort of implies is where's the best path for these kids, as opposed to everybody automatically goes to college.
Sure. Okay. I think I understand what you're getting at. So I'm going to use Dr. Trocheck's example of something that we found out of the audit. So we found that in some of our AP classes, our advanced classes, they were disproportionately represented by white children with economic advantages. And so I do think it's important to look at why that might be the case. I also think that to support some supports all, and it's not about taking away from some and giving to other. I think, I'm going to use another example. I went to the Cabot, aired a film called Crip Camp, I think it was really great. I encourage you to check it out. I think it's on Netflix, actually. And I think Barack and Michelle Obama were the executive producers for it. So it was really great. And there was a Q&A afterwards. It's not exactly the same situation, but it parallels our discussion. So somebody gave an example of, somebody that owns a business and they have a set of stairs and they have a wheelchair ramp. And they were having a conversation. I'm not explaining the Q&A exactly the way, but this was my takeaway. So there's a set of stairs and a wheelchair ramp, and the business owner clears the stairs. And someone said to the business owner, how come you didn't clean the wheelchair ramp? And he said, well, how many people are really going to need to use the wheelchair ramp? But the thing is, if you clean the wheelchair ramp, we'll call it just the ramp. If you clear the ramp, then everyone can use the ramp. So it's not about taking away someone's opportunity to use the stairs, someone that can use the stairs. But if you create like a level playing field and give everybody the same access, then it benefits everybody, right? So I think what we're doing is looking at, areas that might need improvement, and focusing on a way to address those. Again, so everybody has not equal access, but equity and opportunity in the same way.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the challenges that's facing school systems all over the country of recognizing that there are different kinds of people that are different kinds of kids that show up and have different backgrounds and
kids show up to
different
school.
Experiences.
Oh, sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But and this whole concept of equity inclusion gets to be kind of fuzzy. And I think this is one of the jobs I think the school committee needs to take on is clarify, what does that really mean for Beverly?
So I don't think, I hear what you're saying. And I first want to say that I think it's really important to have open and honest conversation. And I think it's also really important to accept where we are in our growth and in our learning process. And there has to be space to ask honest conversations. I don't think there is anything fuzzy about equity and opportunity. I think every student, regardless of how they show up to school every day, deserves the same support and access and opportunity as any other student that shows up. So I think, is this affecting every school district across the country? Yeah. Are some districts probably doing a better job of it than others? Yeah. I think the fact that we've hired Dr. Morgan, the fact that Dr. Trocheck is doing a great job working with him and with the rest of her staff to develop training around those findings and to dig in a little bit deeper to understand what the meaning of those findings is. I think that means that Beverly is doing a great job of recognizing where we might have some inequities and where we might need to do some work around those inequities. And I don't think there's anything fuzzy about that.
Okay. And I guess one of the other things you start to mention access, and I've had several discussions with various members of the staff and Dr. Morgan included and school committee members. And one of the challenges that Beverly is facing is students who need hands-on learning. And the number of kids that apply to get into Essex Tech and can't get a slot because it's limited gets to a point of what are we going to do in Beverly to compensate? And had a discussion with the assistant superintendent, and what she points out is we've got a program to have the kids half day at Beverly High, half day they go to Essex Tech.
Yeah, the After Dark program. Yeah. Yep.
So that's a good fill-in or a backup kind of thing. But at the same time, recently there was a significant grant given to a bunch of schools. I think the governor said it was something like $10 million divided up. And one of the things I'm still trying to find out is how much did Beverly get? But the other issue, I guess, is if some of these grants come available, where do you think we ought to spend the money?
So that's a good question. And I can give you an answer, but I think the answer has to come from the community, right? So we've got the ESSER grant money coming in, and I know that the school just sent out a survey asking the community about where we think as a community we need to spend that money. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that we have a very big problem for social emotional needs heading toward affecting us now. And I expect, and I think there's a lot of concern in other communities as well across the country, that this global pandemic continues to affect our children. I think we've got a lot of children that need a lot of support, and I think we've done a great job. I think we've hired some school adjustment counselors, but I think we need to prepare ourselves for the fact that we're going to have some really tough decisions, and we're going to need to really have some tremendous support around that over the next couple of years. And I think it's starting already. I mean, our kids are not immune to the effects of what we're going through as a society as a result of this pandemic. I mean, it's tough, and I think it's really, really, really tough on some families.
Yeah, I think.
And so I think that's an area where we should think about spending some money and preparing.
Well, I
to
think what
support our
you're
kids.
alluding to is there is a problem that's been documented that depending on the grade level, the students are half a year to a year behind where they should be, because the opportunities for online learning were not that great and not that effective. So you get to the issue that you just raised about the adjustment counselors. And so what do they really do? It's a term, I think, again, that I think it's fuzzy, because I don't know what it means. I don't know what they're doing.
Sure. I think it depends on the kid. I think they're there to support the social emotional needs of the students. Kids can't engage in what the teachers are trying to give them academically until they're in a space to be able to receive that. And kids come food vulnerable, to school every day. They come with trauma of various types. And I think in order to have space to process through some of that and be available to them throughout the day, I think we need school adjustment counselors, because I think we ask a lot of our teachers. Without school adjustment counselors, I mean, I think this pandemic shed a real light on what we ask of our teachers and of our school communities. And so I think without school adjustment counselors, it would be a scary world for our children, truly. So I think school adjustment counselors work closely with families and staff within the school communities to support children in a lot of different ways, not just during the day, but in their home environment as well.
Well, I guess
So kids can be successful.
I still think, are they like psychiatrists?
No, I wouldn't liken them to psychiatrists. I mean, if you need me to give you an example, let's think about, okay, I'll use my daughter as an example. I'll give you a real life example. Our school adjustment counselor at Hannah and our principal has been a tremendous support for us. My daughter has a really hard time with transition. She has a really hard time. She's doing great now. She has a hard time and can be really rigid in the morning. Her teacher was experiencing, all the kids would go outside for recess, and my daughter would still be there kind of folding her sleeves and getting everything just right before she could go outside for school. There's no rushing my daughter. Mm-hmm. There's no rushing my daughter when she doesn't want to do something. And the school adjustment counselor was really great in helping me come up with ideas. And I'm fortunate that I have resources and family support, and myself had great opportunity. So I think they were really tremendous and helpful to me to help me come up with ideas to help Emma be as successful as possible and to come to school every day feeling good. But that doesn't just happen in the morning. Those opportunities for support happen throughout the day for students. I mean, there's students having some real depression and anxiety issues at all different ages. And I think we really need experienced, knowledgeable, trained individuals like school adjustment counselors to help that process.
Well, we've had about a half hour worth of fun, believe it or not.
Time flies. I know. Yeah. I just looked at the clock and I was like, wow, that went by really fast.
And it's your turn to talk to the camera and tell the people why they should vote for you.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the opportunity. So I would just ask everybody to consider that I am someone who is excited to do the work. I'm already digging in a lot of different ways. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I attended the Mass Association of School Committees training class, which all school committee members have to take. I'm not even on the board yet, and I really wanted to lean in as much as possible so I can, if elected, fingers crossed, I really want to hit the ground running, and I want to understand as much as I can about what's expected of the role, more than I already do. And so I'm really ready to dig in. I have a meeting this week with Dr. Trocheck. I'm meeting with Dr. Morgan. I've already reached out to Dana, the head of our transportation. I've reached out to food services. I've been in conversation with some teachers and some leaders. And so I think I just have a lot to bring to the table. I am passionate about public education. I am passionate about Beverly schools, and I'm just really excited to do the work. And I hope that everybody considers me when they go to the polls on November 2nd.
Good, thank you. Now, a little bit of mechanics. How do they vote for you?
That's a really good question. Thanks for bringing it up. So there's a period of time, for those that don't know, when elected officials have to pull papers and then return papers if they wish for if they want their names to be on the ballot. Because Jeff and I didn't decide to run until we realized that John wasn't running again for re-election, we missed that time. So our names will not be on the ballot. You can get our names on the ballot with your vote in one of two ways. You can write it in. I'm Lindsay Ducharme at 31 Bertram Street in Beverly. I know Jeff is on Hale Street. His number escapes me. Ideally, write my name in, write my address in. Those write-in ballots actually get pulled out and counted separately. So there you go. And if you want a sticker, you can reach out to me, Lindsay for Ward 4. When you put it together, it's Lindsay forward number 4 at gmail.com. If you want to reach out to me,
Okay.
I'd be happy to talk to you or get you a sticker.
So the critical thing is, if they want to write it in, they got to write in your full name and your address.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Which
so
is one more once.
That email address, or I'll give you my name. So it's Lindsay, Lindsay, and then last name is Ducharme, and then address is 31, and it's Bertram, Bertram Street. But again, you can email me at Lindsay for Ward number 4 at gmail.com, and I can get you a sticker if that's easier too.
Super. Well, best of luck to you.
Thanks. I appreciate it. November 2nd.
Oh yeah, that's it. Everybody, you got to get out and vote.
You got to get out there. I know our primaries were not so great, which concerns me about the level of information that we're giving to our community, but November 2nd.
Well, thanks again, ladies and gentlemen, for watching us. And there'll be more of these shows with the candidates. And again, if you think there's something that I should be asking or didn't ask, or you want to be on the show yourself, at the end of the credits, my email address is listed, and it's just simple as my last name, bins@comcast.net. And send me an email. We'll get you on the show too. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned. We'll be back.